Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Dad by Daylight Episode 3 Pregnancy Anxiety. In this episode, I will be discussing the anxiety that Madeline felt surrounding her pregnancy, what I did to help her through it, where I succeeded, where I failed, and if we did it all again, what we could do to be better. Now, killer anxiety is a topic that's being discussed in the DVD community right now, so this feels like a really great time to discuss life anxiety. We hope that this discussion will help normalize feelings of anxiety in all types of situations in life and let you know that you're not alone in these feelings. If you're ever feeling overwhelmed, please reach out to family, your friends, or your community for support. Know that these feelings are not forever, they do not define who you are, and that things will get better. Now, with all that said, good luck on this one episode, Joe. You'll need it. Thanks for the encouragement introduction, me. I appreciate it. Now, let's get right into it. Anxiety surrounding pregnancy is extremely common. Emotions are running high, you're super excited, and you're very nervous. We had already had one miscarriage, as I had mentioned last episode. Now we're on to Madeline's second pregnancy, and we were obviously super hopeful, but there's a ton of worry mixed in with it. And I was obviously especially worried about Madeline. You know, she had to deal with the one miscarriage already, and you never know what's going to happen. And every little thing you kind of worry about, every ache and pain is something to be a little bit concerned about. So every feeling you have normally is heightened to an insane degree. Every ache and pain could be discussed, but we would probably be here for hours. We're going to focus on two constant points of anxiety that Madeline had throughout the pregnancy: food and a high blood pressure misdiagnosis. We'll start off with food. Now, regarding food, one of the first doctor's appointments that we had was with a prenatal nutritionist. Now, this was overall a great discussion to have. The doctor gave us a lot of good advice about prenatal vitamins, making sure Madeline got enough calories and protein, and a lot of different macro and micronutrients she would want to hit throughout the day. It also came with a list of food restrictions of things she couldn't have. High level being no lunch meat unless microwaved for 30 seconds, no bean sprouts whatsoever, no raw meat, no meat cooked under 165 Fahrenheit whatsoever, and no runny eggs. Those were sort of the big takeaways. The worry being that any foodborne illness could really have a detrimental effect on her and the fetus. So, this was a whole new way of like looking at what to eat for Madeline. She had gone her whole life just sort of like, eating healthy and being good about food intake, but not super concerned about hitting micro or macronutrients throughout the day. But now she really had hard set in stone number goals from the nutritionist, and this was something that weighed on her. This did give her anxiety seeing those numbers. And so something she found to be very helpful was I would be sort of almost constantly asking to make sure she would hit everything in the day. This was something she asked me to do. And so every day I would pretty much ask if she had taken her vitamins, bring them to her if she hadn't, ask if she had eaten in the last couple hours, and if she hadn't, to whip something up. And that would also include, I was very diligent about, we had an instant read thermometer, and any meat I cooked, I would make sure to temp to 165, and I could confidently say, yep, this is cooked to the temperature, this is hitting our goals, making sure that everything I did was sort of helping to reach her goals throughout the day. And she found that having the extra set of eyes and the help around the house was really helpful to really put her mind at ease when she was worrying about this, especially considering she was having a lot of physical side effects of being pregnant. Her first trimester, she was pretty nauseous. It wasn't necessarily debilitating, but it was very annoying. And so that was really important to make sure that if whatever I would make her or bring her, if it didn't make her feel too good, I would sort of take a note and be like, okay, hey, last time this made you feel sick, let's try this. And that worked for the first trimester, but the second trimester was quite a bit more brutal. What would happen during the second trimester is essentially Madeline would get heartburn to the point of having to throw up. And this was pretty much any time for no rhyme or reason, it seemed to be. So during this time, it was really important for me to kind of track what was kind of getting her the worst and try to make sure that she didn't eat too much of those foods and she ate sort of a lot of smaller meals. That seemed to help, but she had a lot of trouble making sure she hit her calorie goals day to day, and that was causing all kinds of additional stress. And this is sort of the feedback loop: is, oh, I didn't eat enough yesterday, I need to eat more today. Okay, I try to eat more, I get sick, I throw up, I can't keep it down, I'm in another calorie deficit. Okay, now I need to eat even more, but same thing happens again. And so it was really important to, let Madeline talk these things through with me, be very encouraging, make sure she knew I was there to help her, actually be helping her. And a lot of times, I wouldn't know exactly what to do, but with talking with her, I would just, my mantra often is just to like be useful. And what exactly that means is different moment to moment. And so I would just sort of see what, and ask what would help in that moment and what would be most useful in that moment. And she would be able to communicate with me. And that would really help, again, alleviate some stress and some anxiety on her side by taking on some of her stresses and worries. Now, we made it obviously through the second trimester, and especially towards the end of the second trimester, the heartburn really started to go away. Antacids started to help a lot more, even though they didn't necessarily help at the beginning. But she was starting to feel a lot better and starting to be able to eat a lot more normally. And we kind of really felt that we were finally in the clear. She was going to have a normal third trimester, and things were looking awesome. Then in the third trimester, she was diagnosed with gestational diabetes, which is sort of because of the pregnancy. This is actually caused by the placenta. So, funnily enough, and the placenta is formed by the man's DNA. So, because of what was in there from me, it was causing her to have diabetes, and that is a whole other point of stress. This means that her blood sugar had to be very closely monitored. She had to go on a very strict diet of how much sugar she could take in, and she had to watch her blood sugar constantly and take insulin to help regulate it. Now, this is not uncommon for millions of people in the world, but for her, it was brand new. And it was just another thing she had to worry about on top of the nausea, on top of the heartburn, on top of the very, macro, micro goals that she was hitting every day. This was something else to worry about. And, again, it was very useful for me to just be there and to help with all this, to help her, prick her finger to take blood, to help make sure she was reading her results correctly. And that kind of stuff really, helped assuage a lot of her anxiety and a lot of her stress. And that was really, she said that was super useful to just have someone there to assist and being just a helper and someone that helps lift up all the concerns and be like, hey, we can do this together, really helped with any anxiety that she had felt during this process. And now, luckily, all the food worries, literally as soon as she gave birth and the placenta was passed, she no longer had any of these symptoms. She just went completely back to normal, and that was great. And it was something we haven't had to think about at all since then. And that's, it's great that, it sucks that she had to go through it all, but great that it's now over. Now, one other huge point of anxiety that she had almost constantly throughout this whole pregnancy was very early on, one of the first doctor's appointments we had. Blood pressure was registered at the top end of normal, but for some reason her chart was marked as having hypertension. Now, being hypertensive or having high blood pressure is normally serious, but something you work through, but having it as a pregnant woman can be especially dangerous. This is often a lead indicator for preeclampsia, which is a pregnancy complication that can lead to serious consequences, including the death of the mother and the child. So, with this marking on her chart, every single doctor that we subsequently went to remarked upon this in her chart. That, oh, I see here you had hypertensive marking on your chart. We need to do additional tests. And every single one of those additional tests, not a single one showed her actually being hypertensive. And even the tests the day we went where she was marked as having high blood pressure, if you look at her chart, she did not actually have high blood pressure. But this continued throughout the pregnancy. No doctor really wanted to take off a hypertensive mark on a pregnant woman's chart because what if something happens? They're the person that took off the hypertension marking. Now she gets preeclampsia, something tragic happens. You don't want to be the doctor to actually take it off. So they have to proceed. Every doctor proceeded as if she had hypertension. And when you don't have hypertension, and every test says you don't have it, but you keep being told, "Oh, I see you have this." It can be additionally stressful. And Madeline, who is somewhat anxious, as mentioned, this really weighed on her often, and she would also often talk about it. We were also given a blood pressure test cuff to take at home, and we would take it regularly, and oftentimes it would show her as having high blood pressure. And no matter what we did, no matter how calm we would have her be, we kept getting at home high blood pressure tests. Just another, just adding stress on top of stress. Eventually, after about a month, we went in to get the machine checked to make sure everything was normal. And a new doctor, different from the one who originally gave us this machine, realized, oh, your cuff size is completely wrong. So we were given a new cuff size. It was sized properly this time, and her blood pressure, completely normal at home from then on. So, that just added a lot more stress and, again, anxiety into the whole mix. And this sort of came to a head, especially, and this is definitely one of the spots I failed to be as supportive as I could have been, in which she was given a blood test. This was, again, an additional blood test because she had hypertensive on her chart, and it showed very, very slightly elevated liver enzyme. Now, this is a problem because, again, one indicator of preeclampsia is hypertension, the other is increased liver enzymes. And when she got the results back, it was technically after hours from when her normal primary care physician would look at these. So she was just given the raw data back on her health app and told that a doctor will review them. Well, when you're someone with anxiety and you read this, there was sort of this negative feedback loop that Madeline had where she's like, well, this isn't technically out of range, but it's the top end of the normal range, and I'm hypertensive. So does that mean that I'm developing preeclampsia? Is that something I need to go to the doctors for right away? And she just started to spiral a little bit out of control. And she decided the doctor wasn't responding to her. So she called the after hours nurse. And in hindsight, what I should have done is I should have taken the lead here. I should have been like, okay, I'll talk to the doctor. But, it's hard to tell someone like, no, I'll do this when, she really wanted to. So I just sort of stepped back and let her make the call. And I could see she was really stressed out on the call with the nurse, and the nurse wasn't really able to give her any solid answers, and Madeline was like really stressed out and being really combative and being very rude on the phone. And apparently I was looking like I was, Madeline felt like I was judging her because Madeline knew she was being rude, but she was just had worked up so much and was so like very emotional and very anxious and not feeling like the nurse was hearing her, and I wasn't being as supportive as I could have been, and she was just feeling judged, and things were starting to spiral out of control a little bit. So that was an extremely stressful night that we were having. Luckily, the nurse did get a doctor to call us back, and the doctor talked us through everything. Everything was fine. It was nothing to be too worried about. Slightly elevated is not the same as elevated, and that a primary care physician would get back to us the next day. But this emergency doctor, the after hours doctor, said this is absolutely nothing to worry about. Don't worry about it. Just you do not need to do anything right now. You are fine. That turned out to be the case. We talked to the normal primary care physician. Everything was okay. But what I think did not help was that I came off as being judgmental. I don't remember or feel like I was, but I understand from Madeline's point of view, I wasn't being as supportive as I could have been. In hindsight, again, I should have just taken control and said like, hey, I'll make this call. I know this is a lot for you right now. I know you're feeling overwhelmed. I will do the talking. I will talk through this. And, again, in hindsight, I would go back and do that. So, you know, everything worked out fine in the end. Eventually, a doctor did step up. This was, of course, right before Madeline went to labor, like literally less than a week, where the hypertensive note was taking off her charts. So the last essentially week and a half or so, it was just not on her charts, and it made things a little smoother going. Very good. And we had normal labor, and that'll be discussed in the near future. But yeah, so this was what Madeline had to deal with a bit about with regards to her anxiety. The biggest takeaways here, and the things that Madeline found the most helpful overall, especially dealing with just having to deal with everything from doctor's appointments, food to everything, was oftentimes just me being there, going to doctor's appointments with her, discussing with her before and after the doctor's appointments, like what do we want to talk about? How did the doctor's appointment go? Being in the doctor's and asking questions, making sure if he had to discuss something and maybe she forgot to ask it in the doctor's appointment, I would chime up and say, oh, hey, what about this thing? And that made her know that I was there, I was paying attention, I was with her, someone was with her and helping her through, wasn't her dealing with it alone. It was also very helpful to her to validate her feelings if she was feeling stressed or worried, to be like, yes, I understand. I see where you're coming from. I I feel this as well. Letting her know and feel that even though she felt maybe she was spiraling a little bit out of control, that it's normal, it's okay. I'm feeling this a little bit too, but it's just not quite taking me out in the same way. And what you're feeling is real, and I understand it. So that really helped her a ton. And then one of the biggest questions that was often useful is, what can I do to help in this situation? Whenever anything would come up, from food, from doctor's appointments, to just feeling stressed out, to needing to go for a walk, to any situation, and I could see that she was feeling a little overwhelmed, a little extra stressed, saying, okay, what do you need from me? What can I do to help in this? How can I be useful? That would all, often have her to help her kind of calm down, realize what she needed, and being able to tell me directly, okay, do this, and that will help. And finally, I think one of the things she really, 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 and this is just useful in general in life, is to listen without providing feedback unless specifically asked. So if Madeline needed to tell me about her day at work, if she needed to tell me anything she was feeling, I was there to often just listen, ask questions about what was happening, but not tell her what she should do or what I think she should say or what I think. Just listen. Ask questions, be engaged, and that's it. You don't need to tell her what I think she would do or what I would do in the situation. I'm just there to listen and absorb and understand. And that really helped her feel, again, she's being listened to, she's not being judged, and that really helped her just sort of work through things in a way that made her feel heard, seen, and feel very good. And so I think that would be the biggest piece of advice at the end there about what you can do to kind of help partner if they're in this situation. Yeah, I hope this was somewhat interesting. Everyone deals with anxiety differently, and that was sort of how Malin, some of the trials and tribulations that she dealt with during this time, and how we sort of dealt with them. So I hope that you enjoy listening to this, and we'll be seeing you next time. I believe we'll be talking a little bit more about the pregnancy, and then moving on into the labor story. So hope everyone does great, and be kind to each other. Bye bye.